So, all growing up, I grew up in the system. I got to be locked up with minorities who beat me up for the color of my skin. And despite that, I still fight for minorities' rights because I recognize those rights as my rights. I recognize that the people who assaulted me, they did so because they couldn't take it out on the people who did those things to them. I have stood up for women's rights and helped hundreds of people move out of abusive relationships, abusive situations, only to be victimized for doing the right thing. I have stood up for black rights so many times, stood up to people who wanted to be racist assholes so many times. Now, I could have gone a different route. I could have. I could have looked at the hundreds of times that I was assaulted for the color of my skin and hated all blacks and Asians and Hispanics for doing it. Those were the majority of my predators growing up, the majority of the people who assaulted me growing up. As far as adults go, well, those were mostly white people. As far as the adults that victimized me in the system, they were mostly white people. That's why when these minorities chose to harm me, why I still took their side. These minorities were children who were being victimized by the same white adults that I was. The same rotten system, the same hospital staff, the same police officers, the same foster parents. And these kids couldn't take it out on the police. They couldn't take it out on the foster parents. They couldn't take it out on the hospital staff, so they took it out on me. I was little. I was easy to take it out on. I was easy to victimize. I've stuck up for women's rights for years and years, but I also pay close attention to what's going on. I'm aware that a lot of women know that they can make false accusations against a man, and there's nothing he can do but take abuse. I know that other men will harm him over this repeatedly, over and over and over again, and the only way to get it to stop is to have the same rights as that woman, and we don't. I've stood up for immigrants' rights and seen them as people and spoken out about how they are humans too, about how women are humans too, about how black people are immigrants. These are all human beings. But as a white male who has had to endure this stuff, I am told to get to the back of the bus, that my rights don't matter. I have less rights than all of you. All of you. When Zayd Atkinson was targeted because the police assumed he was homeless, and they do this. The police, if they believe you're homeless, they know they can get away with doing whatever they want to you. They know that they can. And they do. I had to rely on a lot of people who were definitely not honest. I had to rely on drug dealers and alcoholics, complete strangers, while being tagged as the person who is the bad guy. And it's okay. Nobody is going to help me. Black Lives Matters doesn't give a shit about me because I'm not black. These immigrants' rights groups that I stand up for, that I stick up for, they don't give a shit about me because I'm not an immigrant. These women who I defended and helped get out of those shitty situations over and over and over again. I don't matter because I'm not a woman. I'm a heterosexual. But despite that, I still stood up and still stand up for the rights of LGBT. I still do that. But because I'm not gay, I don't cross dress, I'm not worth what they are. They're not standing up for my rights. Why am I standing up for theirs? Because unlike them, I see them as human beings. I see their rights as my rights. But they falsely believe that I have those rights. I don't. I absolutely do not have those rights. Not unless someone stands up for me the way that I stood up for them. And nobody did that. Lots of people claimed that they would, but they didn't because they were too busy on drugs. Yes, there are a lot of people who are gay who are on drugs. There are a lot of minorities who are on drugs. There are a lot of women who are on drugs. There are a lot of white males who are heterosexual who are on drugs. There are people from all of these groups who are on drugs. There are people from all of these groups who are homeless. Zayd Atkinson was not targeted for the color of his skin. He was targeted because the police thought he was homeless and they could get away with harming him. They thought that they would get away with it because nobody cares about the homeless. Nobody cares to stand up for their rights. Nobody cares. Now, there are other rights, like the rights of the disabled, and I am disabled. That cannot be disputed. It cannot. This week, I have already provided you on this very YouTube with evidence of my disabilities, but with nobody standing up for my rights, with me having to waste all of other people's resources to try to find a safe environment where I'm not having to deal with alcoholics who are volatile and meth dealers who are volatile, where I'm not having to rely on addicts for help. Most of these people are addicts or drug dealers or alcoholics. Most of them. Now, as far as Laura Nelson goes, the thing that pisses me off the most about her is I tell people, don't tell me anything that you wouldn't tell the police. If the police won't listen, I will go public with it. Laura Nelson, I told the truth, and you know I told the truth. But you're too afraid to come out in public. And I am glad that you told that to Officer Holloway. I really hope that he had his body camera on. And I'm probably going to have to call them tomorrow and ask him if his body camera was on. But the fact is, Zayd Atkinson only had to deal with one of these scenarios. Why did he only have to deal with it once? Because Black Lives Matters actually cared about him because he is black. It only happened to him once. It happened to me repeatedly across the United States. Was Zayd Atkinson charged with assaulting a police officer for the shit that happened to him? Was he forced into homelessness because of what happened to him? Was he assaulted repeatedly by the public for what happened to him? Was he accused of stalking someone he didn't stalk? Was he accused of raping someone he didn't rape? Was he accused of molesting someone as a child that he didn't molest? Was he accused of murdering someone he didn't murder? Was he targeted by minorities? Was he targeted by immigrants? Was he targeted by police nationwide? Was he targeted by the homeless? Did the news block out his ability to speak and refuse to listen to anything he had to say? Did the news slander his name worldwide? I have stuck up for Native Americans my entire life. I have stuck up for minorities my entire life. I have stuck up for the LGBT community my entire life and immigrants my entire life. Do you know why? Do you know why I stuck up for women my entire life? Because I went through that shit too. Women are not the only people who are raped. Black people aren't the only ones who have to endure racism. You have no idea how many people I see on my very own Facebook going through, and I see people posting about white people this and white people that. Which white people did this to you? Is it all white people who did this? Or was it a racist police officer? Were you actually targeted for the color of your skin? I know that many people are targeted for the color of their skin, but said Atkinson was not. It had nothing to do with his color. I have a conversation on this very YouTube between myself and Darren O'Connor where he admits that the chances are pretty good that he was targeted for being homeless. And after looking at the full video, yes, he was absolutely targeted because they thought he was homeless and they would get away with it. If he had been homeless, Black Lives Matters would not have given a shit. If he had been gay and homeless, the LGBT community would not have given a shit. If he had been an immigrant and homeless, these immigrants' rights groups would not have given a shit. If he had been a woman and homeless, these people would not have given a shit. Meanwhile, all of these people who want to pretend that I have to be happy all the time, because I am so privileged because I'm white. I am so privileged because I'm a male. I get paid more than women because I'm a male. Don't I? I get told that black people can't be racist. I get treated like all white people are racist. All white people are your enemy. We are not. When you look at those groups marching, when you see those women's groups marching, you will see white men marching with them. When you see these LGBT groups marching, you will see heterosexuals marching with them. When you see Black Lives Matter marching, you will see white men marching with them. These immigrants groups, when you see them marching, you will see white men marching with them. White men are not your enemy. You alienate them and tell them they have to get to the back of the bus. And your excuse is, well, we had to endure this for years and years and years. You know what? So do we. I hear kids who never had to go through the apartheid telling me about what I did to them, about what I, who was victimized by black people growing up, who was victimized by the same system that victimized them growing up, that I owe them for slavery. Meanwhile, the 13th Amendment was instituted at the end of the Civil War. And the 13th Amendment makes it legal for everyone who is convicted of a crime to be used as a slave. And I've had to endure that many times in my lifetime. Poverty is illegal. It's not illegal to be black. It is illegal to be homeless. A black man in a house can use the bathroom without getting in trouble. A black man in a house can drink a beer without getting in trouble. If his rights are violated in that house, then people go all over Facebook and bitch about it. But if it happens to that black man while he's homeless, nobody gives two shits. When it happens to that woman when she's homeless, nobody gives two shits. When it happens to that homosexual who is homeless, nobody gives two shits. That's why the homeless have to endure more of this than all of you put together 5 times over. You take all of the hate crimes from all of your groups and you put all of them together, and the homeless are still victimized at 5 times the rate of all of those combined. And that is not including police interactions. Police target us first. When you are victimized by the police and you can't go after the police, you go after the homeless because you know you can get away with it. There is no protected status for the homeless. And there is supposed to be protected status for mentally and physically disabled people, of which most homeless fall into those categories. Most of them. Yes, 25% of people who are homeless are addicts. 25%. Not 100%. 25%. Meanwhile, all of these government agencies who did wrong shit to me got to use the system to slander my name and prevent me from ever having an honest day in court ever again. Not that I ever did. The slander at Clearview and Bayavista Vista Hospital, that is on my medical records permanently, unless I can get an honest day in court. The assault by Officer Waylon Lolatai, who is involved in Zed Atkinson's case, by the way, who is involved in Samuel Leon Lawrence IV's case, by the way, who is involved in Michelle Rodriguez's case, by the way. All 3 of these people who were targeted because it was assumed they were homeless, because it was assumed that nobody would speak up for them. But people did speak up for them. Why? Because Ed Atkinson was living in a house. He had a roof over his head. He was a college student. He's more important than I am because he has a possibility of a future. I grew up in the system. When it came to CPS did right by removing me from my mother's household. They did right by removing me from my father's household. But then they and the police did wrong repeatedly by ignoring the abuses that I endured in these foster homes, in these group homes, and in these institutions where I was force fed drugs. I am still fighting for your rights. Are you not recognizing that the things that have happened to me? I spoke up about when they happened to you. I stuck up for you when they happened to you. I didn't make excuses why you deserve it because of your sexual preference, because of your skin color, because of your gender. I'm still fighting for your rights. But you need to recognize that my rights are your rights too. And the fact that you ignore this shit because it's happening to me, I must deserve it because I'm white. I didn't do those things to you. I must deserve it because I have a penis. I didn't do those things to you. I must deserve it because I'm not an immigrant. I didn't do those things to you. Stop blaming me for the terrible things that happened to you. I didn't rape you. I didn't falsely imprison you. I didn't beat you up for the color of your skin. I did not enslave you. I did not have you picking cotton in the plantation that I don't fucking have. When Maddie Boa came out about being gay to her father, he beat her up. And who did she come to? She came to me, a heterosexual white male. My life doesn't matter, does it? Black Lives Matters doesn't care about me, do they? These women's rights groups don't care when it happens to men, do they? These immigrants groups don't care when it happens to people who are born here, do they? I needed someone to fight for my rights. My rights have been violated more than any immigrant that I have ever met, more than any woman I have ever met, more than any minority I have ever met, more than any disabled person I have ever met, more than any homosexual I have ever met. I've been victimized by minorities. I've been victimized by women. I've been victimized by the LGBT community, or at least individuals within it. Do I blame LGBT people for what individuals within their group did? No, I don't. Do I blame all women for the things that women have done to me? No, I don't. I blame all of you for looking away because I'm not a part of your group. I blame all of you for shoving me to the back of the bus like I'm the one who raped you, like I'm the one who molested you, like I'm the one who whipped your ancestors with a whip. I didn't do those things. Meanwhile, the media did everything in their power to destroy my name. The police did everything in their power to destroy my name. The Bollingers did everything in their power to destroy my name. They threatened, harassed, and assaulted people who were trying to help me. They intimidated these people. And when I got so desperate that I did those things back, people said, see, he's a terrible person. Then again, I didn't go running around assaulting people, did I? Did I? I had to take the abuse everywhere that I went. I have PTSD from being raped as a child, from being beaten up for the color of my skin as a child, for neglect as a child, for the drugs that they forced into me as a child. And you know what? As an adult, the same things happened. The only difference is, as an adult, I was too big to rape. One of the worst beatings that I ever received in the system, I had 3 older boys tell me that I was gonna suck their dick. I told them if they got their dick in my mouth, I was gonna bite it off and I was gonna swallow it and they would never get it back.